Single dad billionaire was left waiting at his office. 6 minutes later, he fired the executives. Marcus Hale had built an empire with his bare hands, but on the morning of October 14th, he sat alone in a leather chair outside his own boardroom, holding a cold cup of coffee and a drawing his 7-year-old daughter had made of the two of them standing in front of a rainbow. He had been waiting for 6 minutes. 6 minutes that would change everything. Nobody knew that the man sitting quietly in the hallway, dressed in a navy suit with no tie, was the founder and sole owner of Hale Global Enterprises, a company worth $4 billion. They assumed he was a client. A nobody. And that assumption would cost them everything. Asterisk if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of dignity, hit that like button, drop a comment, share this story, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every story we tell is for people like you, asterisk. Marcus had not always been rich. There was a time, not so long ago, when he drove a rusted pickup truck and worked double shifts at a steel factory just to keep the lights on. His wife, Elena, had died of a sudden illness when their daughter Sophie was only 2 years old. No warning. No goodbye. Just a Tuesday morning that became the worst day of his life. From that moment forward, Marcus raised Sophie alone, packing her lunchbox before sunrise, reading her bedtime stories with calloused hands, showing up to every school play even when the factory foreman threatened to dock his pay. He was tired always, but he was there always. That was the promise he made to Elena's photograph on the nightstand. That he would never let their daughter feel forgotten. The empire came later, born from a small patent he filed for a thermal insulation process he had invented on a napkin during a lunch break. Investors laughed at first. Then they didn't. Within 5 years, Hale Global had offices in 9 countries and contracts with 3 of the largest infrastructure companies in the world. Marcus became wealthy beyond what his younger self could have imagined, but he never became the kind of man who forgot where he came from. He still drove Sophie to school himself every morning. He still made her grilled cheese on Sunday nights. Money had changed his address, but it had never changed his heart. On this particular morning, he had arranged an important board meeting at 9 o'clock sharp. He had flown in overnight from a conference in Dubai, arrived home just long enough to drop Sophie at school and hear her tell him about the drawing she had made, him and her, together under a rainbow. Because rainbows come after storms, Daddy, and you always say we've had our storms. He folded that drawing carefully and placed it in his jacket pocket before heading to the office. He arrived 4 minutes early and found the boardroom locked. The receptionist, a young woman named Clara who had only started 3 weeks prior, offered him coffee and told him the executives were finishing a private breakfast. Marcus thanked her quietly and sat down. He did not announce himself. He simply waited. 6 minutes passed. Then 7. Then 9. Through the frosted glass panel beside the boardroom door, he could see silhouettes. Laughter. The clinking of glasses. He could hear fragments of conversation drifting out, someone making a joke, someone else laughing loudly, the unmistakable sound of people who had completely forgotten, or simply did not care, that someone was waiting for them. At one point, the door cracked open briefly and he caught a glimpse of the scene inside, the long mahogany table littered with breakfast plates, his 5 senior executives leaning back in their chairs with the comfort of people who believed they owned the room. One of them glanced toward the hallway and made eye contact with Marcus for exactly 1 second before looking away and pulling the door shut again. That look told Marcus everything. They had seen him. They knew. And they had chosen to continue anyway. He sat with that knowledge for a long moment, his hands folded in his lap, the drawing in his pocket pressing gently against his chest. He thought about Sophie. He thought about Elena. He thought about every moment in his life when he had been made to feel small, by foremen who docked his pay without explanation, by investors who smirked at his napkin patent, by a world that had looked at a grieving young factory worker and seen nothing worth respecting. He had promised himself, in those dark early years, that if he ever built something of his own, he would never allow that kind of disregard to take root inside it. A company was only as decent as the people who ran it, and the people who ran his company had just looked him in the eye and shut the door. At the 11-minute mark, the boardroom doors swung open and the 5 executives filed out, mid-laughter, adjusting their cufflinks and checking their phones. They stopped cold when they realized the man standing up from the chair in the hallway was not a waiting client. It was Marcus Hale. The founder. Their employer. The man whose signature was on every one of their contracts. The silence that followed was the loudest thing in the room. Marcus did not raise his voice. He never did. He looked at each of them slowly, one by one, the way a man looks when he has already made a decision and simply wants the other person to understand the weight of it. He told them, calmly and without cruelty, that he had built this company on one foundational belief, that every person who walked through these doors deserved to be treated with basic human dignity, whether they were the janitor or the CEO. He told them that he had sat in that hallway for 11 minutes, that at least one of them had seen him, and that not a single one had come to the door. And then he told them that their services would no longer be required, effective immediately, with full severance packages and a reference letter from HR, because even now, he would not be the kind of man who left people with nothing. Security was not called. There was no dramatic scene. They simply gathered their things and left, and the hallway was very quiet afterward. Clara, the young receptionist, had witnessed the entire exchange from her desk. Her eyes were wide. Marcus walked over to her, thanked her for the coffee, and asked her to please arrange for HR to begin the transition process. Then he paused and said something she would remember for the rest of her career. He told her that the most powerful thing a person in authority could ever do was remain kind when they had every reason not to be. He took the elevator down alone, stepped out into the cool October air, and reached into his jacket pocket. He unfolded Sophie's drawing carefully, the two of them under the rainbow, her crooked handwriting spelling out me and Daddy at the bottom. He stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, looking at it, and for the first time all morning, he smiled. That evening, he made grilled cheese on a Wednesday. Sophie asked him why they were having Sunday food on a Wednesday, and he told her that some days just deserved it. She laughed and climbed into his lap, and he held her there long after the plates were cleared, in the quiet of an ordinary kitchen, where the most important meeting of his day had just begun. Before you go, drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever been in a moment where staying quiet and kind took more courage than anything else? We want to hear your story, If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that dignity is not determined by a title, and that kindness is the most powerful currency a person can carry, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Like it, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and let us keep building this community one story at a time. You being here means everything.